Okay, welcome back. Hopefully the weekend, well, we did have like nice weather. It was like pretty good weekend to be out and about in New England. So now we're into module 2, dealing with data and statistics and all that. Anything coming up or connections, questions? What's happened so far? Nothing burning this morning. I know it's early Monday morning, but nothing that was like on Friday, like, oh man, if only I had been in class and I could have asked this question. All right, I'll check in, see what people are up to, and then we'll go from there and start a demo or something.
So this is on module 2, number 2. Yeah. So style counts, or what's the value counts? Yeah. So is it basically reading each unique one of these? Each unique. What is this that unique? Just gives you a list of the different names within there. So then why, for instance, if we go down to style counts, or is this minus 50, meaning the last 50? Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. The lowest number, the highest count is 9. There should be 400 something because it's the, okay. Yeah. So in terms of this references the last 50. And then your colon, what if you put something after the colon? So the general process is start, stop, and then you put another colon if you want the step size. Gotcha. So starting is 50 from the end. Gotcha. So you could put like a negative 10. So last 4. Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. Yeah. Also takes a while. Mondays, am I right? Just like it was even on. It was streaming on. Yeah. Years. Yes.
Physics 1040p. Bro, you tell me you don't like the cosmic origins of light?
That sounds so like. What's that thing called? Aquarius.
And you want to be like
Aquarius. What's that shit called?
Astrology?
It sounds like an astrology type shit.
I'm more of an astrology guy anyway. You're an astrology guy. Except astronomy is a lab class. Why are you taking a lab? I'm not taking a lab course, Mike. I'm not taking astronomy.
No, you're not saying that. You know my dad, bro. Actually, you don't know my dad, but you know.
And it's an e-course.
My dad is the only one
This
who's
was
going
physics
to
and quantitative reasoning. Like, actually,
No, he's not.
bro, this doesn't sound weird. It's like an alien class. What? You want to take alien?
What's alien class?
Physics 1040p.
I'll text you.
You don't need to fill anything out. They stay a full-time student.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this. Don't stop listening to you. I'm like hopefully I'm thinking this.
Yeah. And yeah, usually like
Wait, is it heavy or just one still?
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I just say, oh, it's a
Shorter
stuff,
thing
like,
than
Yeah, I mean, I just wasn't all that.
you don't do that.
How many math lessons did you take beyond the one?
yeah. It's very
Was it the garden class?
Yeah, right now.
Oh, is it the mechanics?
So easy.
It is?
I walked in, zero paying attention to the entire class, and 96 on his first quest. Yeah, this is what they're called. I know, I also did.
What do you do? What's it about?
Like population, like viruses. We're doing like a project on like crop dusting, right? Is that what you decided on? No, there's like quizzes. There's no actual exam. Yeah, that's so easy. Yeah.
Okay, I like to take chocolate.
What's even the time for that in the full time student?
Having scholarships.
Yeah.
Not really.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna take my little ceremony class.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
First project, name your own. This is flip flop. He's from flip flop business. You're not taking. You can't take the Air Force ground school class.
Yes, you can. It never says anything about their car.
John, you think he's allowed to do an Air Force ground school class?
100%.
You think so? You think he could go join the air facilities classes?
Well, say once you join the first semester, like
It didn't say it's only over the It didn't say it was over the gas?
like we'll never take it good. Well, I've already finished that fucking question.
You did.
computational.
You still have to take a written test on but and then you need to get the layout for the license. What if they expire?
You don't have the rotation, but it should be the same odds. If you rotate it without that, you can access. Use an argument of symmetry because
You have to pass the practical test within 24 calendar months of passing the written test.
I don't know.
2 years is lost 500 hours.
Then basically those things.
Yeah, like,
So it's just indigenous.
Yep.
It's just what?
Yeah, it's a little like at the
I prefer to say it's what, but it's not what.
Done. Question one of the favorite music, soccer music. I was with my skills, I just feel like you're fucking Freddie's always on my mind. This is the number.
Oh yeah, yeah. You just need like I think for the years it ended up being almost 40 something percent.
Basically just tell you, it's like, I think one.
So imagine coming here to watch online. What is the difference? I take this out. Basically, or so we don't understand the difference of how this is here.
Really, you don't know.
That one will make it. It looks a little smaller here. It's coming up, especially the states literally in line with these cells. Looks like the far left.
Yo, I'm getting there, bro.
This looks slightly larger.
I'm so what?
Yeah. It's a little cleaner, I guess. Like there's no gray around the borders here.
Yeah. And they're supposed to be like interactive.
Why not?
I think last time I was trying to get it, it wasn't working quite great.
Excuse me. I haven't been able to get the widgets to work for some reason, like interactive, because I think the default. So there was a question we were just talking about, like the magic command inline, and then I think the other option is widget, so that you can have like interactive plots. But for some reason, I haven't been able to get that to work. I'll have to ask the NanoHub team what's going on with like embed widgets. I don't know if that'll help. It doesn't seem to, right? Because we're supposed to have, like, whenever you say widget, it's supposed to be able, like, you're supposed to be able to like zoom in on a graph and scroll and like have all these other things that you can do. Because if I come into, if I just make just make a new one here. Oh, what? Doesn't like that. Why not? No module IPy MPL. Alright, I was going to show you how cool how fun and easy it is to have interactive plots, but none of my Jupyter no one wants to use widgets for some reason today. What? Why not? No module. Alright. Okay, sorry. I'll have to. But these magic commands with matplotlib, it's supposed to change it from like just a static picture to an actual like interactive movable plot. So whenever it says inline, that is the default. Like it's not going to change anything. And then widget is supposed to make it movable and changeable. But today, we don't have that. Very strange. I guess while I'm here, do you know what this plot is showing us? Like, do you know what this is? Someone shows you a picture of this and says, like, here's my data. It's telling you something. What things is it telling you? Okay, ABV and how often? Like, what does that tell you about, like, so in this data set, it's like the beers data set. So we're looking at alcohol by volume as a function of like every beer. So, yeah.
Just by looking at it, you see the highest frequency of alcohol by volume is roughly 0.05, 0.06.
Yeah, somewhere in here, right? And those are called bins. These like big bars here. And the wider the bin, the more things get counted. And in statistics, you do like the limit as those bins go to 0, like same kind of like calculus sort of thing. So you get a continuous probability distribution, but we can't measure how often the alcohol was like 0.05039, because most of the time it's just reported as like 0.05, like 5%. And here, like default is usually like 10 or 20 bins, but we can make it as big as we want, as many bins as we want. And it changes the shape of the graph. Is it different data? Like what's happening as we're...
It's just more accurate.
So now it's more accurate? So bigger is better? How many bins should we get for the most accurate?
As many as there are samples.
Do infinite? All right.
That's to get the most accurate.
So let's have 1,000 bins, right? Is that going to give us much information? At some point, we're just, yeah. So there's definitely, like, as you're, again, like, thinking about senior design, if you're trying to report, like, we measured something a bunch of times. How do we report this? A great way of showing a lot of measurements is a histogram. Like, we measured it 20 times, it was around 5%. 30 times, it was around 2%. And you can kind of create these bins. But there is, there's a nice way of representing it, and then there's like the not so nice ways, like too many bins, and then if you have too little bins, also not helpful. So somewhere, yeah, if we have 3 bins, it's kind of like, okay, we're still just, so
Perfect shape.
it's exactly a bell curve, yeah. It's symmetric, all our data works, like, bueno, yeah. But yeah, histograms, it's a great start, and usually, at least like Python code, super easy, because you just ask for like plt.hist, and it shows all your data, just bunches them all up together into different bins. But usually, just play around, at least take like a couple of seconds.
If you want the bins to fall in certain intervals, do you just have to play around with it? Or
No, we can say, let's do like, what's our min to max? So 0 to 13. So let's go 0 to 13 and then divide by 100. So it's like 0 to 13%. And yeah, so 0 to 13 with step sizes of 1. So now I can look at individual because it's probably report. I guess usually it's reported as like 1 decimal point, right? Like 5.2 or something. But if I want to join them all into like, is it 0 to 4? Is it 3 to 4? Is it 4 to 5? Like this one, at least to me, this makes a lot more sense. Like 5 to 6 is the most likely. 6 to 7, you do see beers that are much higher, but it gets less and less likely. Probably just more ingredients, harder to. It's not. I don't think it's harder to make. Like, but yeah, different yeast, longer processing time. I think. Oh yeah, it's consistency. I think as you get higher alcohol, you start running into consistency problems. Like, can you deliver the same beer at the same alcohol by volume every time? But that would be, yeah, if you're playing around with data that way, and I like to put all this on a new line. You can specifically give it like, these are the bins that I want. 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, all the way up to like 12 to 13. Or whatever, you could enter it in manually if you wanted to. Give it a list of values or an array. Cool, thanks for entertaining me. Thanks for the this problem is kind of going through that part 2 reading. There's a bunch of steps to get to the point where
Yeah, that's like the same. I've been doing it all. I'm insinuating that everything else you do.
What? Is it more precious?
So in this like first question in part 2, we were just taking a look at it, and there's the first step of kind of like, okay, beers is pd.read CSV of .data and beers, and then I can say like my beer, beers for fears, yeah. Fill. I think I can just do this. Oh yeah, I should add some. So the first step, I'm just kind of changing how the data is laid out, and I'm having you do this because it's kind of like the two like limiting cases. One, you every time you have an NA, throw the data out, just ignore it, and just move on to the next one. The other one is, well, I think I know more than just throwing it out. Like maybe I can fill it with a value that I know, and we could fill it with zeros to start and see what that does. And the real answer is going to be somewhere in between, like the missing data. Maybe it does have an IBU, maybe it's too low to measure, something. But then from there, we want to create like this bubble plot. So coming down. So here's like the first version of the bubble plot that's kind of hard to see bubbles. And then this is like the fancier version where we start increase the size of the bubbles and change the colors based on what styles they are. And then if you really want to get fancy, you can go in there and say, start putting in some labels of like, these are some of the biggest styles that I have in this data set. And that's like the fanciest version of the bubble plot versus, I think this is at least a better, if I scroll up a little bit, even just without the labels as it catches up. How far behind are we on here? Pretty far, huh? Catch up. So this exercise, it's not asking you to go through and like, oh, well, how do I create a bubble plot from scratch? It's more like, all right, what was the process to get there? Identify those lines. So the main thing that got plotted here was like, if I try to grab these lines, I can kind of work my way backwards, right? And then it's going to tell me like, hey, you're asking me to look at style means, but you don't have that variable called style means. So then I could go back to the reading and scroll up. I'm like, all right, where was style means like actually defined? So here I'm using the variable. Like if it has the variable, coming back. If you have the variable and then a dot, that means that's like running a function on that variable. So that object has the option to plot, and it has a plot with a scatter. So I haven't defined it yet in the reading. So I'll keep coming up. There's style counts, and here's like style means. So I need that style means variable. So I got to copy that line of code. And I think the power of Jupyter Notebooks is like splitting your code into smaller cells so that the errors are a lot easier to trace back to like, what line is that? Because this is gonna, sorry? Yeah, so now it's telling me beer styles is not defined. So I gotta go back and figure out, well, what is beer styles? And beer styles is going to be this one. But I don't want to use beers clean. I want to use beers filled. Because I didn't clean the beers data set. I filled the beers. Well, based on the way that I did. If you want to do it your way and say zeros are clean, that's fine. Like if you want to say this is clean. Now at least I have that like style means, and will it work now? Now there's other problems. Style counts. So now I got to figure out where style counts. And I'm specifically not grabbing all the lines that I need. I'm just doing one at a time so you can see, like, you're going to get error. Like, you should be getting errors. If you're doing Python right, there should be errors. So style counts. I need a variable called style counts because I'm using that variable in this like block of code. So style counts, I see it right here. It's defined as beer styles, style.value counts. And now colors is not defined, so I can come back. Style counts. And here, colors is made from this like matplotlib. CM is a color map. So I'm creating a color map based on the style value counts. I'll put it right in here. And then sure enough, I recreate like same plot because I was just kind of slowly working my way, defining all the missing variables to make that plot. At least that's one way to do it. The other way is like carefully do the readings and like see like, all right, so how does this work? And then recreate it yourself. But you know, we're all busy. It's like we'll get the error and I'll fix the error and then I'll fix the next error and then I'll be done. Then I can go back and sort of absorb what's going on. Filling, dropping, grouping, counting the values, like the number of values in those styles and all that. But I do want to take a second and just look at this. How long would this take you to do in Excel? 20 minutes. I don't even know if I could get this done in Excel unless I was like manually putting dots and things. I don't know. Does Excel have can you change the size of markers based on values in Excel? That part I don't know. There might be a way. There's got to be a way, but this is, and we could clean up like how it looks. Like there's a lot of different ways. Here we're saying like if there's over 65, maybe we want to say 75. Just because we're including more here and there, so get those text boxes away from each other a little bit. But there's all sorts of like really cool like stuff that we can do now that we have. Oh, now that we have like Python working for us. Oh, I see. Had 2 copies of the same code.
Oh yeah. There. So because if you scroll up to Word and try to hit edit, so you can do some of it. Yeah. Yeah. And then you need to try to send. If you just write out the word bill styles or bill styles, sorry. And then run that. Like that is a data frame. So that's a pandas data set where the first column is style, the next 2 columns are you could rename those columns like capital. Okay, so when it's using it here, it's grabbing directly. Yeah, so it's not like a user defined title or anything. Yeah. Now that I think about it, rename. I know how to add new columns, but I'm trying to think of you probably should be able to name column. Yeah. This is the call maybe at that point.
Dot rename. Okay, that makes sense. Data frame dot rename, and let's see if there's a nice. So you can use this command, like if you give it, this is called a dictionary. Whenever you have like those curly brackets, so we could give it a dictionary of like ABV, capital ABV, IBU, capital IBU. Because so to catch everybody up with like if you're watching later or watching now, or just if you're just joining us on this existential plane, the question came up like, hey, I wanted to, not the scene stats, homework 2. I didn't want a lowercase ABV, so I'm trying to rename this capital ABV. But that one, it's part of the data frame itself. Like if I try to remove this and just write ABV, it's gonna tell me like, hey, there's no such thing as ABV. What are you asking for? Why are you doing this to me? Yeah. So instead, if I'm like, but I don't like that, I can say dot rename. I'm gonna zoom in. So what I did, REN, rename, and then I think I give it a dictionary of like ABV, colon, ABV, and then IBU, colon, IBU. Let's see if that works. So I should, nope. It didn't work. Why not? Oh, say columns equals. My bad. All right, so that one worked. And I do have to, sometimes it runs the code and you have to specifically say like, all right, actually replace what I'm doing with with that function that I'm running. And that's what I was trying to figure out. Stop. So now it's going to tell me that ABV is not, like that doesn't exist because I have to change it to uppercase ABV. So then change those two to uppercase. And I'm still using, oh yeah, this one. This has got to be capital ABV, capital IBU, if I could spell. So it actually knows where to put those to. But now I did change my labels to capital ABV, capital IBU. I want to change that. There's two of them that are like right on top of each other. American Blonde APA, something. Just bugging me. But yeah, I hadn't tried that before, of like this rename function. That one's kind of handy though. Like if you don't like the way this, or if the CSV is like weird names, you can do a dot rename and then columns, change it to something that makes sense for your process.
Same size. Okay. So it is. So it is an array. And I think the problem is yeah, this is bigger size. So somehow here's what was defined. Like probably as you're like trying to figure out what was where it got defined. And then here's P and here's the and size drops. Okay. Cool. Nice. Favorite mineral? Like things.
Thanks for joining.